Hi everyone, this is Killshot from 99 Gaming. This is Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 9, Super Preview. So here it is. We finally got a little bit of dead chat. I know you guys have been super hyped up. And this is going to carry us all the way through to The Walking Dead. We've had some really good conversations the last, I don't know, 3 weeks. Maybe since Comic-Con, some real good Walking Dead storylines. And there's been some good fear information out there as well, but we haven't touched on a lot of it. So tonight, we are going to talk about it. We got a couple announcements before we get into tonight's video. We do have a couple brand new patrons. Do want to give a shout out to Crystal Gore and also Betty Jackson. Thank you so much for your support. And also Julie McGuire, brand new member on the YouTube stream as well. So thank you so much, Julie. Appreciate you being here. And we've got some super chatters. So much support for this channel. You guys are absolutely amazing. So let me give some of the super chat shout outs as well. We got Valar saying, hello, Army Kills, Steph, Emmy Kills, Bree, Sweet Tommy, sponsors, patrons, and the super chatters. And then Sergeant Chosen One giving a salute out to the entire 999 Army and a whole lot of new subscribers. So thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing. Two big themes that we're going to talk about in Fear the Walking Dead. And those themes are the weather, and Morgan making his way back to Alexandria. Yes, we did call it. We've talked about it. We said Morgan's mission was not to leave, that Morgan's mission was to be the shepherd that is going to bring the flock back. And I think a lot of people are surprised how much they're talking about that. But, how long is it going to take? And what year is he going to return in? We got so many time skips. It's so confusing right now. So we are going to probably confuse you more than probably the Walking Dead streams have confused people with the different time skips. Because Morgan leaves, and we know that he was at the junkyard for 6 to 7 months, and it took him time to get down there, and now he's on his way back. But then there's going to be a time skip on the other show. So we got to figure this all out one way or another, and ultimately it will make sense. I see Mark Ross says, kills, Mark in the house. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Lieutenant Ripley, hey, kills. Great question. I don't have an answer for that right now. I was going to give like a nice, clever response to it, but I don't have one. Just I look like a computer monitor. I guess that's the best I can do at this point. Let's talk about the third big factor that's out there. So on The Walking Dead, we're so used to the dead, and that was really what we learned to fear. And then it became people with a little bit of the terrain and with a little bit of the hardships that you go through. But now it is going to be the weather. It's going to be floods and torrential downpours. And, of course, the Walker-nado. Now, we do like to find the believability in it, but I will tell you that some walkers are definitely more heavy than others. Because there were some that were just munching, and there were some that were just being like spun around and airlifted like almost immediately when the wind would go through. Either way, it's a very cool effect. There are not, to my knowledge, major spoilers that are out there, so we could have a lot more fun with Fear the Walking Dead this season if there are no spoilers. If anyone... Oh, really? Lisa Khaleesi says, I am not a fan of alligators. I'm going to just read through a couple comments. So one thing I'm going to do is I am going to rely on you a lot more because with Fear the Walking Dead, I'm going to be honest. It was super good last season. But there's a small percentage of Walking Dead fans that don't tune in for our Fear the Walking Dead streams. I understand. I'm not going to pressure them. I'm not going to try to make people like something that they just can't make the commitment to. Although, for me, it was worth it. It was worth it for me to recommit myself to the show. I'm glad I did. But you can see just by the amount of people we're going to have in here. We'll probably have about half of what we normally have for the Walking Dead streams. Sunday night, it'll ramp up a little bit more because that'll be our countdown, and, people are going to support it. But it's going to take a little bit more for a little bit longer for people really to get invested in Fear. So I'm hoping by the time we get through the season, if it ends on the right note and we really get hyped up with Morgan's journey, that we'll be packing the houses next year. Aaron says, I never used to be afraid of zombies until I watched The Walking Dead. Now I'm petrified. Aaron, that's interesting because the zombies and the walkers on The Walking Dead are not really scary to me. It's more like an obstacle, not like, jump scare type of thing. I think it's more like what they're capable of doing. Hold that thought. We got a super chat, and it is Timothy Lamora. It says, do you think Morgan knows of the whispers? I remember Morgan mentioned people wearing faces of the dead. Maybe it might be a hint later in season 4 of Fear that spurs him back. So when Morgan was starting to really go through his visions, and I don't know, when was that season 3? I don't know when Morgan made that comment, but I know what you're talking about because I've seen it posted in a couple places. It's going to depend on the time frame. I've thought about this a little bit, like what will Morgan run into on his way back? So, Timothy, I don't think he knows of the whispers because I don't think the whispers exist. But is it possible? No, it's not. I was going to say, is it possible that Morgan ends up affiliated with the Whispers, or is it possible that Morgan ends up being a victim of the Whispers whenever they make this march back? I mean, we don't know that Morgan has a long-term role on the show more than another season, so he could definitely bring the group back. I don't see this group as part of the Whispers in any way, shape, or form. But could they come in contact with the Whispers? Probably. They're probably a little too far behind. Because what it appears going to happen is The Walking Dead, they're going to run their first 5 or 6, and then they're going to time skip it, and they're going to get the Whispers. But Morgan may or may not be on his way back. It could be like an idea or a concept, or it could be a bona fide journey where we see them go from Texas and sort of make their trek back. But the reality is, to drive from Texas to Alexandria, only a week. So if it's going to be, I know you run out of vehicles and I know you run out of supplies, but a week is still not a year. So if it takes more than a few weeks, I'm going to really have a hard time following that. There'd have to be some greater evil out there that's going to sidetrack them so much or strand them. So, but that does kind of segue into a question I want to ask the 999 Army. What do you see as a deterrent or something that keeps Morgan and group somewhere between Texas and Washington, D.C.? Because clearly they can't just kind of pack up and end up, well, I guess they could. But that just doesn't go well with the Walking Dead story. Oh boy, Richard. Richard says, what if there's a second time jump on Fear? It's going to be hard to follow before long. KCF says the same thing. They play around with time in both shows. Large group of people. So let's do this. Morgan was at the junkyard for, give me a number, 8 months? There was not a confirmed number. It was the amount of time it took a plant to grow. So I think it was a minimum of 6 months. So I'm going to get some help from the Army here. And if you guys are watching the playback, leave it in the comments. So Julie says 6 or 8 months. And we can ballpark it. Yep. Long enough to grow an eggplant. Okay. You guys want to go with 6 months? We'll go with 6 months. I'm cool with that. So the time skip on The Walking Dead is 18 months. So that would mean, Gina, even with travel time, yeah, I'll give you that. Let's say it took Morgan a month. Maybe even 2 months. Some of it was walking, some of it was cars. That's fine. But we still got, that would mean Morgan would six, 8 months in Texas. Did you guys feel that? It seems a little bit long. We know he did the interview. Yeah, Samantha, that's a great question. How long did it take him to get to, I mean, that's a little bit of the wild card. Could be a mini time skip as well. Wow, you guys are really digging into this. Okay, so it all works until we get to a second time skip. So if we put Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead side by side, The Walking Dead will be 18 months out. That's where they're starting from. That doesn't say how long all the events in the first 5 episodes take place. So that could be another month that's added in there. So yeah, this is going to be a tough one to figure out. They did this to really, really mess with us. Morgan's been there for, let's give him 5, 6 months. All right. So even 5 or 6 months, he's making his way back. You add a week to that. It still works, though. You're talking about a week here, a week there. You know, Rick, they're building the bridge. They're rebuilding their civilization. Morgan's on his way back. So we're fine until we get to Rick's death or Rick's departure. Right, Dakota, and that's the problem that I'm running into is Morgan at this point is ready to go back to Alexandria. We know it only takes a small amount of time, but it's not likely that we will ever see him in Alexandria. This is what I'm a little bit annoyed with. And we don't have the full confirmation of how long the time skip is. Now, I've heard it reported years. I heard it reported 5 to 6 year time skip. I'm just finding that harder and harder to believe, though. That's a great point, Lieutenant Ripley. Fear was just renewed for its 5th season. So it's seeming less likely that that second time skip is that long. Because it's not going to take Morgan, it should not take Morgan 5 years to get back to Alexandria. Their paths have to cross at some point, or Morgan never makes it back. And that's kind of where I was going at the beginning of this broadcast, is could the fear group be somehow related? I know we've speculated that many, many times in many different ways. It's been speculated that Jadis was involved and that maybe Alicia's involved, maybe Nick was involved, maybe Madison's involved. So there's a lot of people that wanted the folks from Fear to be the Whisperers. Maybe, Julia, the group makes it without Morgan. They live on the outskirts. They're another group. They're another community. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Jimmy's jamming, super chatting. And so I have to throw this out there as a topic. Kills, they're also making noise about a possible return of Matt. Wait a minute. Jimmy, you got to help me out with they. Because I am of the conclusion that Madison is gone, and she's been gone, and that ain't ever coming back. Okay, Jimmy, let me say this, and let me say any other channels that are reporting that, it is false. Because the only channel, the only place that would have any of that data is the Spoiling Dead's fan page, and they don't have a source right now. So I'm going to say it's just maybe some of what we do. Maybe it's a strong theory. Maybe it's something that somebody talked about. Maybe it's an idea. You know, we do prediction videos, and sometimes people take that information, they run back and say, I heard from somewhere that Rick is going to survive it and he's the cure. I mean, because we talk about it a lot and it feels real and there's an opportunity there. It was pretty much confirmed at the highest levels of the Walking Dead that she's dead. So I would not buy into that. Nor would it be a great big thing. I mean, to be honest with you, Madison was not super popular. Now, if Nick were, there's a chance he could be alive, that would be something that would be bigger news. I mean, Nick had fans. I don't know that Madison had the following that Nick had. And I think the show's moved on quite nicely. So Timothy says, you don't see someone down screen doesn't mean that person dies. They left her open-ended. You know what, Timothy? She was open-ended, but she was open-ended from that explosion. She did not survive it. There's zero chance that fire and that flame and, all that stuff that went down, she torched the place. Did you see those walkers? No, she's gone. She ain't coming back. Mel ain't coming back. Nick ain't coming back. And let me say this, because I'm just having a little fun with this topic tonight. If the whole storyline is, and they said this on the talk shows, and Kim says this, and they talk about all the power. Wait, let me squash this just right now. And Jimmy, whatever that channel is, you go back to them and say, I'm just gonna throw one point of rationale out there. They get all these people together. Okay, here's the difference. When Glenn supposedly died, and then we had the dumpster, they didn't get Steven together and sit down in a talk show and say, well, it was the right thing because it was Glenn's story and he was there with Nicholas and this is the way it had to go, and we're all going to miss him, and it completed his whole storyline. He had to do this. Okay. Well, Movie Idol is wrong. I'm going to tell you, Movie Idol is wrong. Because this is something that you do not do in movie, and it's something you not do in TV. But the opposite is when Kim did that, they talked about how it completed her story, and how, she was the tough mom, and the right way to go for her was just sacrificing for her kids. And then what are you going to do? Okay, we were just kidding. Nah, I didn't really sacrifice for my kids. We just wanted to get together and talk about it. I just wanted to set this fire and then kind of take the back door. And oh, by the way, when they showed back up in the tank, and Alicia was shooting at Althea, and they were back and forth, and they had all the toasted walkers there. Yeah, I was over there in the corner kind of letting them do their own thing, and I decided that, I don't know, 3 or 4 months later, I would just pop out and say, hey, I'm here. Come on. It ain't. There's so many reasons why that can't happen. And the opposite of that would be the whole thing with Rick. Yeah, right, Peggy? It's like, surprise, I'm not as good a mom as you thought I was. Because I said I died for my kids, but I didn't really die for my kids, and I just hid out, and it was just all something we talked. No, it doesn't work like that. But the Rick thing is they've avoided the word death. And they keep talking about his exit. And we haven't seen it happen yet. So it's 2 totally different comparisons. So to the last nail in the Madison coffin, is this. We did not need to see a woman set herself on fire on television to understand the symbolic nature and the importance of her death to save her children. I didn't need to see it. That wasn't good television for me. I don't need something that graphic and that visual. I saw the charred bodies when they went back. I saw the fact that they weren't looking for her, that they knew it was over. But that's great closure, and it's a great transition into what we're talking about today. It did, you know what, it was a good topic, though, because I think it did take a little bit of the kind of the brain twister off of what time skip again? All right, so let's get back to the fact that Madison is gone, and it happens all the way across the board. So, and look, I'm not bashing another person for their theory, but if they say that it's legit, I'm going to say it's not legit. You call it a theory or call it a possibility. But it's one of those that is a small probability possibility. So we have theories out there too, right? I mean, we have Rick gets bit, Rick's a cure. Maybe that's a small probability as well. We have that maybe some people get their heads cut off as warning signs, and we see that. There's maybe a small probability of that now. There's probably a bigger probability after Rick leaves. So let's not, confuse our predictions and our theories with something that could be confirmed, because I don't think there's a source out there that's confirmed that. So I'm going to get back to kind of where the topic was before we got onto the Madison topic, and that is, does it feel like Morgan may die? Because the cast in Fear is reporting it was a very tough filming season, that there was a lot of loss to deal with. Now, the season is not just the second half. So I saw an article on that, and I think some people get a little bit confused. They're like, okay, well, I just saw an interview with Colin Domingo or one of the actors, and they talked about how tough it was. But keep in mind that they lost Frank and they lost Kim. So that's all of the season. They may not have had any major losses in the second half. Right. See, Casey, that's what I think, is they had to deal with that part. It looks to me like the second half is a lot of fun. And you're right. Deborah Mooney says, Morgan says, I don't die. He did say it. But you got to understand, if I'm asking you a question, there's a reason behind it. So now we got to narrow it down a little bit to the potential problems and hopefully give everybody less of a headache. So, problem number one, if we tie the two shows together, and they are definitely tied together at this point because Morgan is trying to make it back, and he wants Al to drive him back. So we're going to have to take Fear the Walking Dead, and spoiler information and mix them all together and figure out what makes sense. So, Spoiling Dead's fan page reported 5 to 6 year second time skip. The Walking Dead is currently 18 months out. And Fear the Walking Dead is somewhere between 12 to 18 months out. Fear the Walking Dead has a 5th season. Now, that doesn't mean that Fear the Walking Dead's 5th season cannot have people from The Walking Dead. So that's a possibility, right? They do make it up there and you're kind of forced to watch both shows. It's kind of like, what did they do? The Flash and the Green Arrow. Like, you'd have to watch the Green Arrow, and then you'd see the Flash show up. And then if you didn't watch the Flash the next night, and that was hard. Many time skips will help it out a little bit. So I'm going to throw the question out to the Army right now, to all of you. I can't throw it out just yet. Hold that thought. I'll throw it out to you in 1 second because we got a super chat. And to all the new members, you guys know how we do. We're going to have some bullet points. We'll have some topics. We will skip around and we'll address some of the questions that are out there. But anytime a super chat comes up, I will stop whatever we're talking about and we will give the respect to the person that is super chatting, and that is Richard Barnes. And he says, again, love it here. Slap the like button. I stole this idea from a previous stream. Well, Richard, let me say thank you for being here. I'm glad that you love it here. I hope everybody here loves it here. And I would absolutely like it if all the 999 Army and everybody watching the playback would hit the like button. That's like one of those surveys for me. It's just one of those things that if you have a good time and you look forward to coming here and you got some good topics, whether they're heated topics or whether they're rumors or whether it's other predictions that you hear and you want to kind of get them out there and talk about them, then I like to make sure that we're doing a good job. And if we get a whole lot more likes than we get dislikes, then I feel like we are doing a good job. Thanks, Chaos Gamer. Appreciate it. And I see Drama King saying the leader of Alexandria, and then I see Julie McGuire saying it was Deanna. And then, of course, someone is going to have to come out and say, who's Deanna? Because that's what Abraham did. Now, that's also another topic. Because we know of all the time skips, then we will never see Abraham alive again. But how many of you feel like they will have Michael film and we will see some Abraham videos? Because I absolutely feel like that they're going to show them. And I would love if they do a flashback episode and actually show the episode, not just the interview. I'd like to see, I don't know, you got maybe episode 11, episode 12, when they're making their journey back. They start going through the tapes, and we just see a whole episode with Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita. Or just Abraham would be fine. Would definitely be highly viewed. All right. We got another super chat. So before I ask the 999 Army the question we were going to get to a minute ago, 1189 Paris says, I think it would be better for Fear to take the next few years to get to Alexandria. The journey and meeting new groups and villains would be interesting to watch. I'm okay with that. And that is one of the three options, Paris, that I think we have to address. Because the reality is, it doesn't take several years to get from Texas to Washington. So I'm going to throw it back out there for the group. Morgan stays alive and is very patient. And they get sidetracked over and over and over again. We've seen that story before. Is that a possibility, and is that able to stand on its own? Would you be okay with watching 2 years of travel? What, you know what? We're not even talking about 2 years of travel. We're talking about 5 years. Dawn of the French. A lot of people are saying yes. That seems extreme for me, though. Because Morgan would not even know what is left in 5 years. So here's something I'm going to put out there that I think would be much, much more believable. And Angela Kang said this in an interview, and I think this is what's being overlooked. She said that we're going to play with time this season. Now, I'm going to assume she doesn't mean the first time skip. I'm going to say the first time skip is a given. That's not playing with time. We're here. This is our starting point. What I take that to mean by playing with time is I think we're going to see them go back and forth quite a bit. So I do think that there could be a 5 to 6 year time skip, but I also think 5 to 6 years is too long not to fill in the pieces. Exactly. And Julie, maybe less of the past, but more of the, I guess that's an oxymoron, right? Because if you're in the future, anything you show after that's always going to be in the past. But for sake of argument, we'd have to say it's present and future. So we would shift between what's going on now and what's going on with Father G and who we see still alive after 5 years and who we don't see alive, and we start to kind of piece it together. And that, the present and the future, could allow us to tie in this Morgan storyline. And what I'm hoping that will make everybody's head hurt a little bit less. So the Walking Dead nerd says, and Gimple did make a point to say they'd play with time in the past, present, and future. So there you go. I'm okay with that. And I think if we're trying to figure out, then that way I don't have to go in and try to debunk or disprove spoiler sites, because Spoiling Dead's fan page does a good job, and they own up to stuff as well, because when they put the news out there about Rick, they recanted a little bit and said, we don't know, because there's time skips going on. It could happen this way, but it might not happen this way. So they sort of just deferred and took a step back. But they have some credible information that there is some stuff going on 5 to 6 years in the future, and we do see Father G with the grayer goatee. Could only take him a couple years. I mean, we don't know that's 5 or 6 years. I think some of it is based on the trailers and who the actors are. But I see them going back and forth. And I'm going to stick with that at this point, because that would give me a Morgan journey that Morgan could show up for the death of Rick if Rick dies. So, question for the 999 Army, all of you and those watching the playback. Is it possible that Morgan will ever interact with Rick Grimes again? This is a very important question. And I want your comments to be included in this. Paul Eagle says, yes, they are connected. I kind of envision them together at the end of the show. Because I do feel like they're not only connected, but they've made this journey together. Yeah, Timothy, I agree with you. Timothy says in the final episodes. So, if Rick's journey takes him to a testing facility, which we've put out there, and Morgan does come back and Rick's not there and things are crazy, it's really going to depend on whether or not season 5 is the last season. Okay, follow-up question for the Army. Does Morgan and the small group he's with make it in the vicinity of Alexandria by the end of season 4? We've got 8 episodes. Tommy V says, season 5 midway. Casey says, yes, vicinity, other side of the Whisper territory. Let me tell you why I think that's a possibility. And really, I hope we're not confusing anybody, because I have asked a lot of broad questions, but it's only to try to narrow it down, to get us to a point. I could see that as a season finale. I could see them dealing with the weather, one episode, making their way back, going through a state. I could see 8 episodes getting us to a point where they're outside of D.C. or, as someone else said, Morgan knows he's back somewhere in the neighborhood. Let's think about that for a second. What would you, other than, I mean, wouldn't that be a great season finale? And then you go right into The Walking Dead, and you watch the whole season of The Walking Dead, and you're wondering how Fear will interact. So, give me an alternate solution. When Fear ends in 2 months, put on your predicting caps right now, because you don't have spoilers. How do you see this season ending? Major death? I mean, I think that would be not a cliffhanger. I think that would be a nice transition. Brittany says they arrive in Atlanta. Brittany, I don't know that they're going to go through Atlanta to get to Texas. It's kind of like a right angle. I would have to Google map the shortest distance between Texas and Washington. But I would say that path is probably going to look a little bit more like, unless, Althea wants to kind of cruise by there. But more than likely, it's going to go through Oklahoma, Arkansas, or a touch of Louisiana. Then you could hit some of Missouri, but it's going to be mostly Tennessee. So the biggest part of their journey to me would probably be Tennessee and then Southern Virginia. All right, Bumblebee Brown says, fear ending with everyone approaching a sign that says 75 miles to Alexandria. You've been watching, Bumblebee Brown's been watching like some of the Twilight Zone or something. Because that would be cool. Timothy says, I see season 4 ending. Morgan and the group on the other side of the broken bridge. So, yeah, you definitely think that they'll get it there. Just catching up on a couple comments here, everybody. T-Ray says, maybe they'll walk up with heads on posts. That would definitely prepare us for the Walking Dead season. So I could see all those elements taken into play. And I think it works well with the timeline, too. $11.89 Paris says, Fear is a new show now. It needs to become more linear, character development, good storylines, with the ultimate goal of reaching Alexandria. Should take a few seasons. I don't disagree. And I'm a little surprised that they threw that out there as quickly as they did, because I really thought it would happen. I didn't think that Morgan would start talking about it, and he would get impatient that fast. Morgan's like, I just got here. I just met you people a couple months ago, but you know what? I'm going back. Now, Morgan confuses me sometimes. It's like, what's the point, Morgan? You could have just stayed there. So, Paris, although I do agree with that, now we kind of have to play a little bit of the hand that we're dealt. So that means that yourself, and there's probably other people, that are going to have to give us some slowdown tactics or reasons to stay. Or I think all three of the theories don't work, and so I'm going to confuse you again. If they don't get there by the end of the season, they're definitely going to have to manipulate time, because a 5-year time skip does not work. So they'll have to show something that is just pertinent to The Walking Dead 5 years from now, and then go back in time to the present time, if that's what it is, and get Morgan and Alicia and John in that storyline. So that's definitely one option, is they time shift back and forth and start to merge it. Okay? As Paris just talked about, another option is that the group just gets slowed down. And I guess that could work with both, right? It could work with the group gets slowed down. I just don't see the group getting slowed down 5 years. So there's no way that 5-year time skip and slowed down 5 years works for me in my mind. It's just not going to happen. And that number could be wrong. Darlene, I think there is going to be some sort of merge and some sort of crossover. And they may want the shows to be close enough to where it's not that coincidental anymore if someone did leave The Walking Dead and go to Fear the Walking Dead. So Alexander says Morgan is not going back to Rick's group. Well, Morgan actually says otherwise. Now, whether he makes it or whether he doesn't make it is a different story, but his objective is to go back, and it is to take them back. And it's in the opening minutes. Jason Daly says, I can see Morgan being gone for no more than 2 years. Even still, everybody, a year on the road to travel through about 4 states is still a long time. 5 years is an eternity. And if it was going to be 5 years, I just don't think they ever would have suggested. They would not have made that Morgan's mission, and they would not have even brought it up. And they wouldn't be out there looking for supplies to get ready to hit the road. So those of you that don't think that the Fear season will end with them almost at Rick's group, give me an alternate solution. Give me something else that you think could potentially happen. Yeah, Drama King, I agree. There's a helicopter. There's got to be some planes, some single-engine planes, some pilots. Pilots are important. Well, Alexander, the problem is he doesn't want to be alone anymore, and that's what's a little bit confusing. Is he did want to be alone, and he's afraid to be around people, but apparently now he wants to get everybody back and show them where he came from. So Gee74 says Morgan wants to convince his new friends and take them, but those notes found to walkers is going to turn into an obstacle. So I agree with that. Here's what some of the notes say. I guess Alicia and Al Fine says, take what you need, leave what you don't. See you further up the road. That sounds like an obstacle. That sounds like a group you don't want to mess with. So we're going to go with another plan here because The Walking Dead does this often. Morgan and company never make it back to Alexandria. Hold on. I know people watching the first 45 minutes of this video is like, but you said. No. We theorized. We speculated. We gave an idea that this season could end. And I do like that. If I wrote it, I'd love to have that happen and find a way to merge it. But it's a question. What we want, we don't always get. And Morgan has direction now and he wants to take them back. It doesn't mean he gets there. Look, there's a lot of things all of us want. It doesn't mean that we achieve them. But they were very clear about the goal, and they know the path. So, as unpopular as it sounds, Morgan could die, and the group could end up doing something else. The obstacles that they have in place right now could become bigger priorities than the journey back to where Morgan's coming from. Saving themselves. Getting lost. There's no GPS. Bridges break. Didn't Morgan cross the Mississippi River somehow? I think he had to. I'm going to have to go back and check my geography. But I'm pretty sure Morgan is on the other side of the Mississippi River. So, look. You're talking like some Lewis and Clark stuff now. If the infrastructure and these bridges and things start to break down, it's just not easy to get from point A to point B. There could be a lot of things that keep them from ever getting there. So, I think we were going to go to, we probably had 4 different theories here. But I think there's as strong as a possibility that this group never gets to Alexandria, even though that's what Morgan's goal is. And when you see notes and you see supplies, it says take what you need, leave what you don't, see you further up the road, that's a little creepy. There are going to be villains. There are going to be things that slow them down. Emmy's like, Kels, my brain is gone. And Cindy D says, I'm excited for Fear, Hurricane, and Walker eating alligators. Yeah, it is going to be super, super intense. All right, we have hit 58 minutes. Time flies. A lot of good stuff out there. So let me just give you a quick rundown of what is going to go down. So Sunday night, we will do our Fear countdown at 8 o'clock. So we always do a Walking Dead countdown. So if you're new to the channel, prepare for that. Tonight, I just wanted to get kind of the super preview out there, talk about what we're looking forward to, what we think can happen. I will promise you that there's going to be an element of all 4 of the things that we talked about. I don't know that we've got enough data to really go full steam ahead and say this is a good solid theory at this point, because I don't think that we checked all the boxes. We don't have really the 10 good clues that we're looking for, but I think each one of those does have some merit. But the fact that they're so obvious about what Morgan's objective is leads me to believe that they may never make the objective. And I know, I like to play devil's advocate a lot with that, but I just don't always believe what is in front of me. I think that there's a little bit of a twist to that, and there will be some twisters, pun fully intended. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing. My brain is still sort of getting wrapped around this. I needed a stream like this, to be honest, because we haven't really dug into Fear right now, and I think now that we're getting the dialogue and the conversation out there, I'll get messages all through tomorrow. It's going to be, people are just going to be blowing up my kick, and it's going to be, hey, Kills, based on last night's video, this is what I think we could add to it. I think this could happen. But we got to have our starting point, and I think we definitely have our starting point. So maybe Morgan gets there in time to interact with Rick. Maybe the time skip back and forth is a factor, that Morgan sees them, and then they set up camp somewhere close to that. Maybe they never get there. They run into some alternate things. And I do think the weather is going to be a big factor in the terrain and all the things that they deal with. And I think it's a very interesting dynamic because it's just not being afraid of what's going to bite you or what's going to shoot you. Now you're going to have to be afraid of things that could happen to you as well. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. If you're watching the playback, this is the closing credits, and I'm going to do some shout-outs. As we said earlier, we got a couple brand new sponsors to the channel. Thank you so much to Crystal Gore, also Betty Jackson, and also Julie McGuire. If you guys are interested in becoming a patron or sponsoring the channel, if you look down in the link below, that takes you directly to our Patreon site, and you will have all the instructions there. There's also a join button over on the right button. You can only do that during our live streams. So the other thing, the Patreon site is another site. You can do that anytime, 24/7. If you want some gear, if you're going to do a Comic-Con or Walker Stalker, there's a link down below for the gear. And of course, in the bottom left corner is our Walking Dead 999 Army page where people act a little silly. We tell people happy birthday. We put memes up. We post the videos. So if you're wondering if there's going to be a stream on a particular night, you can always check that out and it will tell you if a stream's going to happen. Most times you can pretty much bank on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and of course Sundays at 8 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Give me a quick 999 in chat so I can shout everybody out, and we will do this again Sunday night at 8 o'clock with the Fear the Walking Dead countdown. I want to say what's up to Felix Batman Plays, Darlene Reinig, Andrew Narcisco, the Catnap Bumblebee Brown, Timothy Lamora, the Walking Dead Nerd, Jason Mixologist Daily, the moderators, Emmy, Steph, Tommy, Kells. Amazing job to the moderators. Give them a shout out if you guys see them as well. Samantha W., Sam B., Shane Hudson, Daddy Corleone, Ron Burgundy. Good to see you, Ron. Lisa, thank you so much. Drama King, New York City. Gina Crockett, thank you. Julia Drums, thank you. Appreciate you help making this stream amazing. Chaos Gamer, appreciate you being here. Sergeant Chosen One. Hippo in the house. Shout out to Chris Reinig from the 999 Army as well. Casey F., thank you. 1189 Paris as well. Special shout out also to all the super chatters. Appreciate not only your contribution, but also you keeping the conversation lively and kind of freeze framing some of your chats. So keep in mind, anytime you super chat, we will talk about your topic. And if you ever do a super chat and I miss you for some reason, send me a message because it is strictly because I'm into a topic or talking about something. That has happened a couple times. So if it does happen, you message me and we'll make sure that we definitely talk about your topic in the next stream and make it a priority. So I want to say what's up to Dwayne Sharp. Thank you so much, Dwayne. Also, make sure all of you guys hit that like button once the stream is over and done with. Deborah Cox, thank you so much. Maggie B, thank you, Maggie. Viola McGowan, thank you. Have a great night. Thanks, Cammie. Have a good night. What's up, Fluff? And Fluff, I didn't get a chance to respond, but thank you so much for that message. I do remember that, and I'm glad that meant a lot to you, and it meant a lot to me as well, so thank you. Lisa Smith, thanks. John Brody, what's up, John B? Dawn of the Frank, super chatting to start to wind up the stream. Thank you so much, Dawn of the Frank. Says, good night. Best streams, always 999 rules. So that is all of you. You guys really make this just good times. Also shout out to Jill and also shout out to little Tommy. Absolutely. Thanks, Tim Lamar. Have a good night, man. Have a good night, Alexander Santos. All right. Looks like Tommy V, thank you so much. I probably missed a ton of shout-outs as normal. You know, the regular crew. I see Mitch True, Pete D. So many good people in this. I can't get them all every night. I always miss a few. There's Jimmy's Jammin'. Thank you so much, Jimmy. DDA Ohio, good to see you. Thank you. Thanks so much, Casey. Glad we start your day in a great way. Appreciate that. Appreciate you helping close our night in a good way, since we're on opposite sides of the world. All right, everybody. Anybody missed, I will absolutely catch you next time. Talk to you Sunday night. Let's get ready for Fear. It's going to be good times. Peace.